Yes. I'm being stupid. Personal advice aside, like, don't pick fights with comedians in public. It's not going to end well for you. Set that down. On the press question, there are a lot of relevant trends, I think, begin to answer that question. We have more access to more information, more media than we ever had before, and filtering through that and sorting that is a challenge. And we ironically don't look back, even though we now have infinite ability to do so. So we always say we should learn from history. We have history at our fingertips, and we never look at it, right? It's something, it's not the technology doesn't solve it. We're still inaccurate about historic things. You look at the run-up to the war and things like that, there's a big sense of frustration. So just look at, you got the videotape, like you have it, we all have it, we see it, but you're still not talking about it. I think it's also easier for people to connect with what they want to hear, so we can all find our own groups and be reinforced in what we like, whether or not it's totally true, in the sense of actual truth. And then on top of all that, this big competitive business pressure, right? The organization of the press is different. It's been bought out by companies. The motive has always been a profit motive in commercial press. There was never this, I don't think there was ever the super glory day that people talk about, but there was a more glorious day than we've arrived at now. And I think you see the combination of these factors of extreme business pressure on media outlets, people's ability to find what they want rather than what they need, and those business interests serving that, because that sells and creates the top line that people want, and sometimes the bottom line. And on top of that, we're just overwhelmed. So I don't even know that we're accurately saying, like, oh, the press is messing up, like the world is kind of messed up, and it's hard to keep up. And these guys are really struggling to get through it, and making a lot of errors in the process because they're not looking at their own files, they're not telling us what we know to be true, they're telling us what we want to hear, so it's very confusing, and it's all moving very fast on top of that. So it's a longer answer, but I think the business interest, the self-selection, and the raw volume of information, plus our inability or unwillingness to actually look at what we have access to, create that sense of distrust, not one single thing, not single media bias.
Yeah, and I think that one of I sort of did the content part of this, right? So in the actual story, I thought one of the more interesting ways to tell a narrative was to do it through commentary, because so much of what the news has become is commentary. And as a youngster, I recognize that I am part of the YouTube, Twitter world, and I do take advantage of it in that it has helped the show. But I also recognize the sort of self-indulgent aspect of being able to be unchecked and report news in that regard. Journalists used to be held to a very high account, and we often talk about that, how journalistic integrity is slipping, but it's not. It's just finding its place among a new kind of journalism, which could also be dangerous. So I think we're still in a more general cultural sense navigating the pros and cons of having everyone have their opinion everywhere. But at the same time, it allows for artists like everyone here on stage to be able to get everyone in the room tonight, or to be able to have everyone follow them on their blog. So it's all about how you use it. And I think that it's our responsibility also as regards content or the actual narrative arcs of whatever we choose to do, be they stand-up comedy or film or web shows or television shows. We can use that and put that in there. There was a reason I think I had pundits narrate the story, because so much of what we do is narrated, is tweeted about, is blogged about. So I think that, but it's really up to us to choose, I think, which content sells and is best. And just to finish up, most good things get seen by a lot of people. And if they have a chance to grow like this, like the Yes We Can video, then you'll be able to tell. There's a reason the Marx Brothers have millions of YouTube views, because they stood the test of time, because they're good, people like them. So I think quality does always win out in the end, but it's a different kind of battle now, and we're still just trying to navigate that. But on the creative front, I couldn't be more encouraged by looking at people who are also heavily influential.
Back to Michael then on that. Another stat is about 11% of internet users. Is that?
I think it's this mic.
Okay.
Was I coming?
A little bit. About 11% of internet users are on Twitter. So we think of that as something that might reach people, but really you're only reaching roughly 1 out of 10 people. Whereas 62% of internet users say they watch video on a regular basis. And that's sort of where the internet going. The net neutrality fight that we have with Obama's FCC is really about a lot of companies saying, hey, there's a lot more video being piped out. It's a lot more complicated to channel. And the internet's going to become increasingly a video medium, not a text medium. And yet video, we know, as I mentioned earlier, can tend towards the fly swatting and not the substance. You were involved with Russell in directing this Rockefeller drug law reform documentary that not only was critically acclaimed, but a lot of people saw it, and that was part of a large movement that Russell worked with a lot of other folks in New York and reformed those laws. So walk us through a little bit of that, and whether you think nowadays you can use video to shape policy, or you think that we're all getting a little too excited.
Well, I'd say that, I made movies for over a decade, and I made fiction and nonfiction. And when I was doing a film in Europe a year ago, in the fall and winter of last year, on the chemical industry and how they've now evolved into the food business. And I came home from Europe on Christmas Day, and I said to myself, making a documentary, I spent 4.5 years at Wyclef making a film in Haiti. I spent 3.5 years with Russell making for the Rockefeller drug laws. I spent 3.5 years embedded with the Bloods and Crips in Little Rock, Arkansas for HBO and a film on the Bloods and Crips. And you spend so much time making these films, and then you're lucky if you have 2 weeks of exposure, 2 weeks of conversation after these films come out, whether in the theaters, on television, on DVD. And when I came home from Europe, I sort of took a step back and said, is this the best way to make impact? Is this the best way to create dialogue? Is this the best way to have a conversation? And I came to the conclusion that although the work that I had done I was very proud of, things like what projects that Matt is putting together can create such an immediate impact so much quicker. And I said, why am I spending 3.5 years working on a film on the Rockefeller drug laws, which we did from 2003 to 2007, and then finally the Governor Patterson repealed them in April of this year. That's a 7-year, that's a 7-year campaign. And I'm thinking, damn, if I would have done that film today, if I would have made that film today, I would have made the film much differently. I wouldn't have spent 3.5 years on one subject. So I look at video online, I look at this project, and I even look at the stuff, the work that you guys do, which is so much more immediate. You can make a movie tonight, and tomorrow, between the 5 and 6 of us on stage, the number of followers we have, you can have 100,000 people touched by that video we made tonight. Couldn't do that. I don't want to speak too long, but I think YouTube didn't exist in 2004. It didn't exist, right? In the 2004 election, we didn't have YouTube. 2006, it changed the course of an election with Senator Allen in Virginia, and changed the course of the 2008 presidential election because he was the front runner. The 15-second clip of him calling an Indian American macaca. That 15-second clip ruined his career, thankfully. and YouTube was birthed as a political machine, as a political weapon. So we're so new in this online video. I'm excited for it. I want to be able to use it. I'm inspired by a young person like this who's using it in a positive way, and I'm ready to go to work for him.
Don't want to step on your applause. We're going to go to questions and comments from the audience. I want to give either of you guys a chance if you want to piggyback on any of that, and we'll just take hands and ask you to stand up and speak up, because we're not going to mic the audience. And we don't have a big thing about it has to end in a question mark. If you want to say something, that's cool, because we're here to converse. I would just more ask that we keep everything under 60 seconds. Tight. So if you can comment, it could just be what you agree or disagree with, or it could be a full-on question. Anything else from you guys before we do that?
Yeah, there's a YouTube stat that I tweeted a couple weeks back.
It's very funny.
And something like every minute, 12 minutes of video are uploaded to YouTube, or every second, 12 minutes of video are uploaded. It means YouTube is eating existence itself, basically. And people are, and on the communication tip, one other note, it's not political at all, but the way kids, like true kids, talk to each other is through video now. I've had a younger brother and talked to other people who have younger siblings, and the party line that I kind of grew up with in the 80s is over, three-way calls is over. People text a lot, but they just converse through video. And it's not like a phone where it's like, oh, check this video, then you reply to that one to check that video, and that's new. That's just visual, it's people are dancing to each other and for each other, and it's available to the world, but the audience for it's very small. The intended audience for it's very small. So just more fun facts from the internet from Barrington Day.
All right, who we got?
Barrington Day.